Welcome, everyone, to ResearchRoadshow.com. Today is Friday, so it's time for Protecting the Nest. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
Good morning, John.
I love that thing we were talking about before in the pre-show about the honey. Can you explain it a little more?
Yes, so Georgia just had a warm snap. Now we just had rain move through, so it could get a little chillier and the pollen might calm down a bit. But for a good week, we had temperatures in the 60s and 70s. We see little, tulip bulbs, which nobody should be planting tulip bulbs. They don't come back the next year. But we see daffodils. We see the new growth on monkey grass and all the and the little things on our cherry trees or our plum trees that say, hey, we're ready. And with that comes a lot of pollen. So you just see a dusting of yellow everywhere. And of course, as I get older, I'm opposite. Some people, their allergies get better. Mine are tending to get worse. And so usually when I get allergies, it's like, okay, you've got to do something about it immediately, or it might turn into a sinus infection. So I've got like 4 days there that I have to get local honey and start to, you have a spoonful of honey, you add it to your tea, you just insert honey where necessary. And then all of a sudden, when you go outside, the pollen doesn't bother you, because essentially that's what honey is made up of, all the pollens. So it tells your body, hey, is this that powdery stuff that enters your body? This is not a big deal because you've always eaten honey. So it reminds your body, and we always buy local honey. And we don't trust honey that it doesn't tell you where it's from, because they make fake honey where it's not really honey. And it's expensive, for something like this, it's $12. But I'm telling you, it is such a miracle. It's such a wonderful thing. So I'm like on my 2.5, almost third day. By this weekend, I'll be able to go outside, have a great time, and not have any issues with allergies until the next season. Right. So there's winter allergies, there's spring, there's summer. And so it's just when, things start to pop out that, woo. And so I'd say the most difficult would be fall allergies, because that for me is mold under the leaves if we have a wet fall. And that is not something you can handle with honey. So that is just something that you deal with by cleaning up around the area and just trying to keep that area safe. But I'm telling you, it's a miracle worker, because you were saying it acts kind of like a vaccine. And to me, it's a real vaccine, because if you can take something that keeps your body from thinking something is evading it, like you're fighting off, whatever it is that ails you, by using something similar, or that in itself, like people who have peanut butter allergies, if they go to the right specialist, they get a little bitty microdose. And if people can't touch it, they start with the touch, with barely touching the skin, and they gradually move up to all of a sudden they can eat peanut butter, right? And that's the right way to do it, instead of poking things in intravenously and trying to heal. That's not how we get sick. We don't get sick by something entering us intravenously. We get sick by nose, eyes, mouth, that way. So I just think that there's a lot of things on this earth and ways to go about having your body work and having your immune system do what it was meant to do, that we just ignore and that we've forgotten about, because someone came in and said, let me be your snake oil salesman. And we said, okay.
Well, it's just so ironic, I think, that we got 2 strikes here for medical misinformation.
What?
Yeah, from our show. And but that is so, it's because, we don't have PhDs. So this is medical misinformation, but we do. We are moms and grandmas, and we get our information from this long line of knowledge, that's been passed down for thousands and maybe more years, in this matrilineal lineage, it's our DNA. It's in our mitochondria. That's our female DNA.
Did they specify what we did, which one it was?
I think it was some TikToks or something.
On the February 10th, Protecting the Nest that got pulled down, I've narrowed it down to 4 videos that, in the one, there's a doctor, it's obviously a medical hospital setting, and the presenter is wearing his mask below the chin, and he's, because he's talking. But I think that could be construed as a doctor presenting an unofficial opinion.
Wait, you mean when he was saying that he put oil on the person's foot
Right.
because they couldn't move their foot, and that person had been dealing with the stroke for 10 years, and anytime anybody touched it, it jerked back, and then all of a sudden he put a calming thing that's even written about in the Bible, and things that go like back to Egyptian culture. And so someone in YouTube that's probably 22 decided that's not true because they're very susceptible to hypnosis. I can't help their hypnotic issues where they believe whatever and they've been brainwashed. But if you just look back in history and you look back at essential oils, in fact, a lot of the medications they use today have some of those components in the medications. They wouldn't even be able to use the medications. The other shit they put in it is filler, right? So understand they're using all the stuff we talk about when it comes to naturopathy, but then they add mercury and crap that doesn't belong there. And then they say,
but even worse, I think, is that they synthesize it. And when they synthesize it, they take the natural thing and they reverse what's called, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing this right, but the chirality, which is they reverse the way it spins. And the reason is because they don't understand that which way it spins is really important to how things actually work within our body. And you can have, especially those oils, if you have ones that are natural, that are spin the right way, they are healing. But if they spin the other way, they can have a totally different effect on your body. And this only works within the biological system that it matters. If you're a mineral, you have symmetry. But if you're alive and you move, because you're alive, everything's always changing, you have to have asymmetry to be alive. And the symmetry really matters. So that's why natural medicine works better,
right. But I think
in a lot of ways.
If I'm sitting in front of a computer 24/7 and I'm a paid shield to tell people what they can and can't say, and I decided I'm the end all be all of everything true and false, and in that I don't step outside, rub my hands through a rosemary bush and smell my hands and see what endorphins kick in and what happens to my body and how it makes me smile. And I don't do that often outside to understand that all medications are derived from nature. And I have a lack of understanding. I just think there's like these chemicals that are put together that magically appeared in a lab that have nothing to do with botanicals. Makes me a goober. It makes me a dipwad that sits in front of a computer and reads a couple of sentences and decides that I have all the answers, right? That's the problem that I'm having with things like this, because typically, at what point do you learn that most of the things that people have gotten in trouble for saying, no more than 4 months later, you were proven to be the idiot who banned the video and what they said was absolutely true? I mean, at some point you have to sit there and say, oh, I'm going to stop this thing. And then later you have to plug your ears and go, la, 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 I can't hear you. And then pretend you never took down a truth that altered the reality and hurt lots of people all over the world while you say you're an advocate for truth. If you are absolutely stopping speech and in that stop something that could inform people in such a way that it saves lives and it actually helps the well-being of others, you are the problem, not the person sharing information. People who don't want to do it, they're not going to do it. And I'm sorry, but putting a rosemary oil or valor that was used back in the Roman, Egyptian, like it goes like hundreds and hundreds of years back. This is something that's absolutely ridiculous. But I mean, what do we expect? What do they teach in school? Not civics, not real history. They don't teach anything. So it's ridiculous.
One of the things that we've somehow learned by osmosis in our culture is this idea that viruses are bad things. They're out there to hurt us. When in fact we have hundreds of trillions of viruses and virus-like particles within our own body. And they're there to help us deal with our environment. And the thing about this one that we're not supposed to mention, or we'll get strikes, is that it's not a real virus. It came out of a computer lab. It was modeled. It was modeled in the computer and then printed. And it was so the virus itself came out of a computer, and then they matched it to a bat. It was reverse engineered, so it looked like it came out of a bat. And then they put it in the Wuji supercomputer and found a way that this virus that looks like it came out of a bat could hook onto people, and that's what Ralph Baer did.
Well, I would say the moral is
so synthetic.
Yeah, right. But the moral of the story for me is this. I hear people everywhere say people need to stand up and say something. They need to do something, right? And these are people that have powerful positions. They've served in places such as the military. They've served within the government. They're in government. They're reporters. There are lots of people on the right and the left. They're saying people are going to have to say something. But then when you do, you aren't allowed to. And where are they to say, okay, you know what? Everyone is speaking up. They're just not allowed to. So now we have to step in and stop this madness. That's the crazy making thing, is that you're taunting people on the left and right, telling them, you have to say something. We have to stop it. It's up to us. You've got to get out there. And then in the same token, where are they suing and fighting back and saying, you know what? The citizens are doing their job. They're speaking up. They're coming out. They're literally telling you how they feel, and they are being suppressed. So therefore, we can't tell them to go out there and do it anymore. There's nothing else they can do. Now we have to step in. But that's the problem. It feels like a bait and trap from both sides of the aisle all the time, nonstop. Say something so that then we can show you how bad the other side is when they shut you up. But it's making me wonder, are they in charge of the other side too? Like, what's going on here? Is this like where a cat messes with a mouse when it's halfway dead and they just keep doing it over and over until the mouse dies? I mean, it's getting very ugly, but if I sat in a position of power and I could do something about it, I wouldn't sit there and taunt people every time I had the chance of, you need to stand up, you need to speak out. And then no, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people all over the world already doing this. And then nobody's hearing it. At that point, I can't say that anymore.
I think that's the ironic thing, is that the doctors themselves are getting strikes at medical misinformation, and the people giving out the medical advice aren't doctors. They're the insurance companies. They're the CDC. They're people that are officials, and the people giving shots aren't even doctors. They're nurses.
They don't see any patients. So literally, how can you have somebody who's not even in the hospital seeing the patients, talking to the patients, looking at everything, laying out an instructional manual on what to do if you're a doctor, where the doctor cannot even do what is necessary for the patient because somebody who sits on a board tells you, no, this is the only protocol.
Or somebody that runs a grocery store can tell you you have to wear a mask as a medical measure, and they're not a doctor. Or somebody that's your employer can say you have to do this medical measure, and they're not a doctor, and yet it's mandated. It's mandated to do things against lots of doctors' opinions. So it's like, that's the misinformation.
But have you noticed this too? So the environmentalists are saying we've got to do something about the planet, and some people are like, nobody can eat meat anymore. You got to eat fruits and vegetables. So with all of this, like something basic, like, okay, while I'm dealing with my allergies and I'm eating honey, I'm also drinking organic ruby roots with carrot, apple, beet, cucumber, lemon, and ginger, right? Those same people that want us to live healthy and mock people and say, well, the reason why people died is they were obese and people aren't taking care of themselves and they're eating junk food. Not only do they support a type of food credit from the government, but they don't even understand that if you go into a grocery store and 2 boxes of cereal are cheaper than a head of broccoli at a specific store that specializes in food stamps, like everybody there in the poor community goes there, what do you think they're going to get? They're going to try to get as much as they can for the little amount of money that they're given. And so they're going to get the 2 boxes of sugary cereal and not the 1 head of broccoli that'll last one dinner between 5 people in the house versus 2 big, huge family-sized boxes of cereal that last 4 or 5 or 6 breakfasts for everyone in the house.
And the 2 boxes of Kellogg's cereal have some extra glyphosate sprinkles.
Yeah.
Yes. And so that's
extra sugar too, which is
Yes.
probably equally bad.
Yes. And so my issue is, if you're going to stand firm on something and you're going to mock people for being overweight and you're going to say, well, the healthcare industry is out of control because people don't take care of themselves and we have to regulate A, B, C, and D. Okay, that's great. But at the same time, they're regulating the speech that actually teaches people to be healthier because they're pushing for a pharmaceutical medicine type that actually exacerbates the problem. Take this, you have another symptom. Take this, you have another symptom. It won't eradicate the issue you have. Or you can hear about natural things to do to boost your immunity, make you healthier, give you more energy, so you can be a better productive individual and not be a burden upon the healthcare system. So you have people talking out of both sides of their mouth and talking down to people by like talking like this to try to get you to understand that you just don't get it. And that's my problem. I'm so tired of hearing that out of both sides of their mouth. You can't talk about your vitamin B gummies that are sold at Publix that literally are, as you check out, that's really good because they're vitamin B12, especially in the winter. Oh no, because that's misinformation, right? But I can talk about Lexapro, or I can talk about, Adderall, or I can talk about anything else. I just can't talk about the vitamins. Like, this is the insanity we live in. Oh, and then they can make fun of everybody who's fat. Like, I can't deal with this. Like, I'm looking at a disconnect all over the place. Everyone's talking out of both sides of their mouth, and they want everyone to be healthier, but they're not allowing anybody to talk about what healthy is.
Well,
it's insane.
They don't really want people to be healthy because this system isn't really built on health. Even the CDC actually means the Center for Disease Control. And the whole system is built on, this trickle up money and the trickle down nothingness. It's all backwards these days.
You were going to say backwards.
I almost did.
Backwards.
I want to underline what you just said, Carol, about not wanting us to be healthy. In Europe, and this is back in 2004, one of my neighbors tried to start a healthy alternative to McDonald's. And he pumped in about $500,000 of his own money and got $2.5 million from friends and family. And, he was basically a Mediterranean diet. It was fast, almost as fast as McDonald's, but it was very healthy. And he had a lot of professional, doctors and nutritionists involved. But they pumped him up and they said, oh, you got to do this. You got to sign these legal papers. You got to give all your intellectual property, et cetera, to us. And then they left him dry. They did not promote it. So, and this did not happen to just one guy. I found out over the past years.
I know locally people that tried to do the same thing. That it's not working. Yeah, I think
they do not
pulling
want
the rug out
healthy.
Right. Well, that's why I also sent. I didn't know that we had got a ding on this channel, which is so ridiculous. But I sent John a video of the House subcommittee to investigate COVID-19 vaccinations. So they're investigating it. So literally, this is in the news. It's an actual video. It's actually happening. So people who are out of touch at YouTube and everywhere else, it's called legislation, and it's in our Congress, in our House, in our bodies of lawgivers, and they're having discussions because they're finding issues concerning what we've dealt with in these last couple of years, and it's their job as lawmakers to do so. So if you're not aware of that, you should probably be aware of that before you mark a video or complain about a video or ban a video, and take down intellectual property. You should probably do your research and understand that there's plenty of investigation going on all over the board. And I think that's where it's even more insane is you have people speaking up and saying stuff that have no right because they're uninformed. They're not even up to on what's going on right now in real time. And like that's important to understand. If you're a censor, right, your job is to shut people up. If you don't know what's happening and our lawgivers are doing right at the moment, and you're speaking as if you are a lawgiver, then you wouldn't be banning or dinging a video that is specifically regarding what they're discussing in Congress, listening to a ton of doctors and a ton of research. I can't hear you, John. You're on mute.
I'm sorry. I have to back out and bring it up again because I didn't share the audio.
Okay.
But this is the right one.
Yes.
Right?
Well, while we're backing out, I think there just yesterday, I believe, maybe it was earlier, but George posted this and I read it a couple places about the Senate investigation too. Or,
Yes.
or what the Senate did is they voted apparently 100% to
Yes.
declassify anything that has to do with COVID-19. I mean, I don't know how much stuff is classified. We've already found tons of stuff that's not classified about the origins, about how this all came to be. It's there, but I'm sure there's plenty of stuff that's been squirreled away
Yes.
as well. Go ahead and play it.
Members of investigation into COVID-19 vaccines development approval process, side effects, and other issues.
The House Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic, which falls under the Oversight Committee, will be investigating the COVID-19 vaccine. This includes possible side effects, the regulatory process of authorizing and approving the vaccines, and why the vaccines were mandated. Subcommittee Chairman Brad Wenstrup told NTD that the members are concerned about reports on vaccine side effects.
We are concerned about that. And how are we collecting data and actually reporting on it? You know, the vaccines were initially there for emergency use authorization. And I felt that the highest risk people, and we did understand somewhat who the high risk populations were and the comorbidities that might exist. But what are some of the adverse effects, and are we collecting the data accurately?
Members of Congress are launching an investigation.
I'm really glad to see this. But at the same time, I know that there is this big op, I guess, on no trust, and that you get the two sides with different stories, and then they're both realizing that the stories disintegrate and there's nobody to trust. But what we need to keep in mind is to have that bring us together and say, who we know trust is the people at the top of the pyramid.
Well, I think it's because, Carol, there are people on both sides of the aisle that are serving in our Congress that are finding out they have fast-acting cancer, that before screenings they had nothing. And then
they didn't have to take the jab. Nobody.
But it doesn't matter if they didn't have to. A lot of them did. A lot of them did because they wanted to. And so you have lots of people in Congress that are having health issues. And we played a video of one of the Congress members, I think it was last Friday, where she mentioned, and she was getting onto Twitter via Vijay Agadi, was getting onto her and saying, hey, wait a minute, you censored Harvard and Stanford doctors. And you're not a doctor, are you? And she talked about her adverse reaction. She talked about her heart issues that now she's going to have to live with for the rest of her life. And so this is a sitting member of Congress. And after that, multiple people in our House and in our Senate are experiencing really debilitating issues. And they're coming out about it on both sides of the aisle. And that's why I think it behooves YouTube and other platforms to watch out, because it could backfire on them, where people sue them because what they've done is hide that information as our governing body exposes it, right? So then it becomes, it's on them for lying and saying that it was misinformation, when in all actuality, just turn on C-SPAN. It is not misinformation, and that you could be held liable.
Yeah, well, I think
Banning speech.
that's excellent information. We just have to be careful not to let one of these false flag white knights who looks like they're the savior come riding in and say, I've got all the answers, when the answers are like AZT for AIDS or remdesivir, things that are worse than the treatments we have now, or the countermeasures, or whatever you want to call them.
I think the most important thing is that there are people in our governing bodies that are dealing with the very thing that many Americans have been screaming about. And now they're dealing with that, and they're scared, because that's why they wanted to mandate it, because they were scared. And now they're realizing, wait a minute, there may have been a reason why people were pushing back, and they're scared again. So that's the thing you have to worry about with the governing body. They shut you up when they dogmatically believe something, and then when it reverses, they're just as extreme on the other side. So if I was any platform trying to ban people for speaking, I would tread very lightly, knowing that those same governing bodies will come after me. First of all, they demanded that I got on to people who talked bad about the very thing I was mandating. Just watch what happens when you censor people who are speaking about it and they're dealing with adverse effects, how they'll come down on you, because they don't want to take the blame for the mandate. They'll switch that stuff all on you, the people they task to censor people. So it's just, throwing it out there, because I've seen you've got people who are, they operate themselves here, right? In the gray areas, sometimes this way or this way. And then you have people who operate on the extremes, right? And we've been dealing with like this weird teeter-totter of extremes. So if you saw how heavy-handed they were with the mandate, watch how heavy-handed it will be when it comes to lawsuits and pointing the finger at who's to blame. Because you've got the same governing body that once they don't like it, they go full force. And right now you have people on both sides of the aisle that have lots of questions because their health is in question, and they don't like that. So, if I were a platform, I would not be censoring. I would not be doing it, because that stuff's going to hit me, because nobody else is going to want to take the blame.
Well, I can deal with YouTube taking down a video. What's really hard for me is when a doctor threatens to call in Child Protective Services because a mother took her child off of a medicine that the doctor had prescribed because she's waking up. That's where I have a real problem.
Wait, what do you mean?
If the medicine is hurting your child,
I'm not okay with them taking down a video. I'm not okay with any of it.
I'm not gonna die over this, and I will.
Well, I'm not either, but I'm gonna complain.
But it's much worse when they call in Child Protective Services because you as a parent took a decision that they didn't agree, that the white coat did not agree with.
Right, but also that's why it starts with censorship, right? Because if you can't say anything about that, then inevitably that's the stuff that they're going to do. So the first step is people should not be allowed to shut other people up when they're sharing what's happening to them personally and what they're seeing and what's going on in their own family. And even people have been in trouble for reading literature off the CDC website while they're saying that's misinformation. You have issues, and Twitter, before it switched hands, people would post exactly word for word verbatim, copy and paste, and they would be told your whole Twitter is taken down because you gave misinformation. And it was literally from the CDC. This is the insanity we're dealing with.
Well, one of the things I sent John was the original wording of at the Geneva Convention. It was actually before they were called Geneva, the International Code of Medical Ethics from 1949, right after the Nuremberg trials. And it changed so much immediately after the next year or two. It was really interesting. But what it first said was the duties of doctors in general. A doctor must always maintain the highest standards of professional conduct, must practice his profession uninfluenced by motives of profit, The following practices are deemed unethical. Any self-advertisement except such as expressly authorized by the National Code of Medical Ethics. Collaborate in any form of medical service in which the doctor does not have a professional independence. This is like kickbacks. Receiving any money in connection with services rendered to a patient other than proper professional fees, even with the knowledge of patient. Any act or advice which could weaken physical or mental resistance of a human being may be used only on his interest. The duties of the doctor to the sick a doctor must always bear in mind the obligation of preserving human life. He owes to his patient complete loyalty and all the resources of science. Whenever an examination or treatment is beyond his capacity, he should summon another doctor who has necessary ability. He shall preserve absolute secrecy on all he knows about his patient because of the confidence entrusted in him. A doctor must give emergency care and humanitarian duty unless he's assured that others are willing and able to give such care. So it's so different than what it is now. It's just opposite. If this was still in place, our system, if we go all the way down to where it is now, it turned into WIPO. This idea, the Geneva Convention of what the duties are to avoid what happened in Hitler Germany have been completely turned on their head. So the insurance company's in charge, the hospitals are in charge. The doctors just have to do what they're told. They can't actually act in the best interests of their patients, even if they want to. So if you kind of scroll down this document I sent, it sort of shows the evolution of how it turned into, instead of medical ethics and a code of ethics, it turned into this idea of being able to patent everything and make money from it, which is the opposite of what this is saying. So this was the original pledge, but it took out the part that you can't make money on the side. It took that out. And then if you keep going down, you'll see how WIPO evolved right from this. This was in September 2004, right after 9/11, and they switched it about the global crisis of the governance of knowledge, technology, and culture, and this idea of equity, and keep going down. These ideas came in right when the UN started, and the WHO. It's shifted. The WHO originally had their mission was for health. It says health in their name, but then it switched to be Gavi, that their main mission is to make vaccinations available for everybody. So here in 1967, this convention, which is what grew out of this ethics originally, to encourage the creative activity in establishing WIPO to promote the protection of intellectual property. So it's divvying up the profits from the idea of health. It switched from health to making money from people and their sicknesses in 1967. And then it shows all the people that signed it. And if you scroll all the way down to the end, it has the shift that goes to the COVID stuff at the very end of this. This goes on and on. This was where they signed it. These are all the people that signed it. So the people that signed it were pages and pages of signatures. A lot of universities and health businesses that were profiting from these measures. But keep going to the very bottom. Just scroll through all these names so we kind of get a quick idea. Can you get to the last part, which is the COVID explanation? Did it freeze?
For a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, just keep going down because this goes on and on and on.
I've actually met some of these people.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of European people. Yeah, keep going.
See, this is what Peter Duke calls consensus. You get a
Yeah.
lot of famous people, and they're all the experts all say.
Mm-hmm. The experts all say that we need to. Oh, here we go. Okay. The Geneva Network is a private organization registered in England, funded by the range of foundations and public and private sector organizations. This is the unholy alliance of the public, private, and a lot of the big pharma companies, the heads were at this point in time, which was 2017 or 16 or 15 or something, they were stepping down and starting their big foundations, and the foundations were making it look as if this was done for health and for the goodness of people. This The joint declaration on the importance, their conclusion is that the importance of IPRs, intellectual property, I don't know what the R means, the Global Trade and Innovation Policy Alliance. We're an informal coalition of civil society organizations. That's all these foundations, and believes in the collaboration between governments, international organizations, the private sector, civil society is the fastest way to end the COVID-19 pandemic and kickstart installed economic growth. And respecting the property rights, the intellectual property rights, is the key for urgently needed vaccination. So the assumption is that these people that have a profit motive are going to come up with a solution for everybody. And it's the solution for everybody that was so pushed. Everybody has to get it. And this is, I think, how we got so far out of touch with, how bodies heal, what viruses are. They don't come out of a lab, a computer lab and a supercomputer lab. That's not an actual real virus. It's a synthetic virus. We need to start calling it that, not calling it,
Well,
now.
Carol, I have some news for you and John, and it's from our favorite guy, Harry the Greek, and he sent something that says major alert. This is a press release I got from the Pentagon this morning. It is a PD or presidential directive. This is a secret plan of the president that is kept from the public for 20 years. What are the directives? Who wrote it? Who knows? And I'll read a little bit of it. The title for immediate release: Defense Production Act, Title III, Presidential Determination for Air-Breathing Engines, Advanced Avionics, Position Navigation and Guidance Systems, and Constituent Materials for Hypersonic Systems, released on the 3rd. And it says, President Joe Biden signed a Presidential Determination PD authorizing the use of Defense Production Act DPA, Title III, authorities to rebuild and expand the nation's domestic hypersonics industrial base. The authority specifically targets air-breathing engines, advanced avionics, guidance systems, as well as constituent materials for hypersonic systems. The Department of Defense is leveraging this authority to strategically accelerate the transition of operational prototypes and advanced manufacturing technologies across the spectrum of air-breathing engines and advanced avionics, position navigation, and timing PNT systems, kinetic capabilities, including those for hypersonic systems, were one of the key focus areas in President Biden's Executive Order 14017, America's Supply Chains. The efforts executed under these authorities will be part of a larger DoD strategy to ensure the United States preeminence in these game-changing technologies, as well as partnership with allied nations seeking similar capabilities. And then you read on, and it describes a production in sectors critical to our nation's national security needs and strategic interests. and applications for funding related to the above authority may be submitted through the DPA. And it gives a section on about the Department of Defense Manufacturing Capability Expansion Investment Prioritization Office. And so this is good for 20 years. Don't know who wrote it. Don't know what technology they're talking about. Maybe this is something John can let us know about.
Oh yeah, this is definitely grain for my mill. This is right up my alley. But this ties into what Carol was saying before. Did either of you remember the Exxon Valdez disaster in Alaska?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Well, and now some tinfoil hats are claiming that it was actually allowed to happen because that furthers the case that private companies are a disaster. They don't care about the environment. They're just a bunch of rich people that want to destroy the Mother Nature and destroying the Amazon forest, etc. Happening with the medical system. They're saying private companies are greedy, and therefore the WIPO should control all the intellectual property from every country so that it's fair, because the WIPO and their superiors in Europe know how to distribute these benefits fairly and equitably. And this has got to tie in some way. I'll find it.
Well, some of the language that was real interesting in that I saw or listened to you, it said many times hypersonic, which hypersonic is like infrared sound. It's like the sound frequencies. So
hypersonic industrial-based hypersonic systems.
Yeah, and the air-breathing engines. That was very interesting. They said
Does that mean that they're going to say they don't want pollutants out of the air-breathing engines, or they want pollutants out of the air-breathing?
Well, it's really interesting, but I think this paves the way most likely for the, surveillance the system that George has been pointing out. This biosurveillance, the hypersonic stuff is going on in the atmosphere. It's this new grid that is supposed to determine our human point 2, which is transhumanism.
Like a super balloon?
Well, those balloons were interesting because I've been reading books on frequencies, and one radar has the ultra low frequencies, and they use weather balloons as an antenna to broadcast and receive those by winding a wire around the big balloon. And then they get these mile-long ultra-low frequencies. And those pulsed are really dangerous. They are things that can really, they can use them. And then all the big buses that were, the 3 buses beneath the big weather balloon, there's lots of stuff that is, ultra-high frequencies that are ones we can't hear, but that affect us. One of the things I've been reading about is how every species has its own radio wavelengths that they respond to, and they are all connected. The whole species is connected with this infrastructure of wavelengths that are there that you can't see. And that people were always wondering about how can insects have mental telepathy? Well, that's how they do it. There's a whole way that was proven how that happens. And we do it too all the time, but it's blocked out. We're said, you can't do that. It's not part of science, doesn't exist. Even though we know stuff that we know is right, it doesn't come from what we read. It's there, it's in the noosphere is one term for it. And which is, the magnetic waves we're all within. So this is a attempt, I believe, at a control grid in the atmosphere is what they're talking about here, making excuses to be able to build this thing and have control over it. And there's a lot out there. There's a lot of papers that aren't written, but when we go to these brain places, we see what the technology is and how it's being done. So you're on quiet there.
Tara, can you hear us?
Oh, Tara's here.
Good morning, Tara.
She's on mute. She might be trying to put some links in the chat part and not ready to be on.
Yeah, she said she
camera.
had.
Oh yeah. Hey, hello. Sorry, technical difficulties over here. I'm just gonna I just gotta gather these couple things and I'll be right there. I'm throwing them in the chat, but I'm listening.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I think what we're talking about is excuses to take emergency control, and do things that really are not part of what we expect our government is supposed to be doing, but do them in a
Right.
way, make excuses for being able to do this and to obsolete humans.
Right. And
No.
if you pair that with, and that's why I want to bring this up, is if you pair that with the overreach of what teachers are doing,
Mm-hmm.
and then you've got just overreach everywhere, it's taking away our identity in family members, in the family unit, in our own divinity, with our own body, our own mind, and literally micromanaging every single thing about us. At what point have they pushed the boundaries so far that they don't see any fault in what they're doing? And so if John could play the video where it says teacher dissing parents, and you can tell, like, this is a lady who doesn't have children, and the way she speaks about the kids are like as if they're hers, and the way she dismisses the parents as if they don't matter. It's disgusting. And the fact that anybody would sit there and try to decide that, no, I get to decide what your children become. I get to decide. It's passed down to curriculum from on high. I may not know the intentions of the people who passed it down. I may not even know if this is good for children, but I got a master's degree, so that's all that matters. I mean, this is the ignorance we're dealing with. Is the absolute controlling, micromanaging, and just disrespect they're giving the common citizenry that they rape our taxes from. Like, literally, they are raping us when it comes to taxes, and then they think they have the authority to tell us we don't get to have any say in what our children do. That's so sick and twisted. I can't even wrap my head around it. I thought they didn't believe in slavery.
List rabid.
You're gonna have to start it over because we can't see it.
Master's degree to be an Arizona certified
John,
teacher.
will you start it over, please?
We all
You guys, that's one of the clips that I'm trying to post right now. You guys are so
that's
awesome.
perfect.
Okay, so,
We're on the
all
same
right,
wavelength. Yay.
okay, but it's not letting me, so I'm doing it a different way. Okay, I'm listening.
remember that the purpose of publication.
John, we can't read the subtitles either, the way it's formatted. If you can move us to the side.
John, move our pictures to the side so you can see the wording.
To be Arizona certified teacher. We all have advanced degrees. What do the parents have? Are we vetting the backgrounds of our parents? Are we allowing the parents to choose the curriculum and the books that our children are going to read? I think that it's a mistake. I'm just speaking from the heart. The one line that I love is, we must remember that the purpose of public education is not to teach only what parents want their children to be taught. It is to teach them what society needs them to be taught.
First of all, she says our children, not your children. Children in public school are students. They are their parents' children. This teacher gone wild, hating on parents, this is the norm in the public school system. Listen to the rabid hatred.
Well, that's really interesting. And I saw something last night that I wasn't able to get the link to, but it was a super blue left type person ranting on the university system and how it has deteriorated so bad, and this is the whole problem with everything. So that was curious too. I think that, you know, there is this coming together starting happening of people realizing that the education, the language, all these things have been put in place to allow this atrocity to, you know, take over humans. I'm happy to see it.
It kicked me out. I don't know what's going on.
40 years ago, my parents would not have accepted. My dad would have got right in the face of that teacher, and if he was male, he'd punch him in the face.
Did you notice she kept saying our children? And like the parents, it's not their child. Can we vet the parents? Woman, what do you do? Like, let's vet you. Like, what kind of sick woman? Excuse me, did you pay for their food, their lodging, the bills in which where they live? Do you have any idea the dynamics of their family, their cultural base, the church they may go to, their belief systems, the way that they're being raised? Or have you just decided your master's degree gets to take away all autonomy from parents and you get to decide? And I bet she's not questioning school boards or curriculums as to why the curriculum she's teaching is important. She's just taking it like a sheep, saying, well, this is what they told us to do, versus a parent who has the authority over their child. So wait a minute. I'm held responsible if my child situation that isn't good. But if I want the best for my child over sexualized, and I don't want someone grooming my child, then I don't have the rights anymore and I could be punished. Is that essentially what's being said here? It's disgusting. And who in the hell do these people think they are?
Seriously, that is just like the perfect example. Shit, on the clip that I had, literally, it was just 30 seconds of just total revealing of just the sick nature of just what exactly is going on here. I don't know why I couldn't put the links in the chat. Did you add that to the chat, Amber?
Yeah,
Or did
that's
you send it differently?
no, that I emailed it earlier. Is that the chat? Is that the same link? We're on the same wavelength.
I know. Well, it was from a
different.
It was from a different source, but I'm just wondering because usually I just go into the chat and I just put the links, but it's not working.
StreamYard's messing up for me. It kicked me out. I don't know.
I think, Tara, you do have stuff in the chat now, so you can maybe.
Well, I sent it to the thread. I sent it to off to the thread because
it wouldn't.
Every time I tried to put like paste, it wouldn't do it. So
did you put it in the four of us chat?
Yes.
The thread?
Yes. And so
well, just email works if you can send that. That's how I think Amber and I both sent John emails.
Okay. Well, if it doesn't work, I'll go back to it. But so I just kind of jumped on while you guys were talking about that. So I don't know if you want me to jump into something or what else is going on.
Yeah, describe what you sent as well, because I mean, the first time I saw it, I got a knot in my stomach and I thought, wait a minute, did she just say that? And then I had to play it again because I thought, who in their right mind would ever utter such things out loud? That's something you say secretly to yourself in a closet because you're demented. That's not something that you say out loud and let people look at you and be like, what's wrong with this woman? A master's degree means you can take away children, and like you can literally just tell parents they have no right or they don't get an opinion as to what their children are taught because you have a master's degree. You know, some of those parents that are mad at you for doing that have PhDs. So what you going to do about that? Like there's a lot of PhDs out there that don't like what teachers are teaching. So now what, woman? Like what in the world? Like, oh, master's degree? Do we need to amp it up with I've got a PhD or an MD and screw you? Like what in the world is happening?
You know, it's like thank God. At the same time as it's so disturbing that they're saying it out loud, it's like thank God that they are, because
absolutely
they're literally like, I meant the sad part is that the validation is coming from these accredited sources, right? So it's like, and that's what's so dangerous, for one of the many dangerous angles for young people, is that these people they're supposed to trust and put trust in, guiding them into absolute lunacy, and then prompting them into indignation. So, so
Well, I think that is part of the no trust, zero trust. That's what it's called, zero trust operation. It's doing things that are just so wacky that nobody can get behind them, and dividing people in, so things disintegrate. And that's
Right.
kind of what's
Well-
happening everywhere you look. But
Right.
not totally. I think it's backfiring. That's
Well, here's my
what I
issue.
see.
If we look at it this way, so in the chat, it's someone, it happens, says the state decides the curriculum. Now, how weird is it that we have some states with conservative governors, and these governors quite often will get on their platform, how dare they? Well, if this curriculum is set by the state, why in the hell is this governor allowing it? Like, if that's my question. So is this a big game where they just want to point out the lunacy of lunatics, and then they come in and swoop in and say, see, we're here to save you? No, jackass. You allowed it to happen in your state that you were in control of, So to me, I don't see any conservative pushback. I see a bunch of talking heads acting offended, wanting all of us to grab pitchforks and start screaming at each other, when they're the ones who actually aren't doing anything to stop their state from pushing this damn curriculum. And so I'm going to start calling them out. I don't want to hear your platitudes of how conservative you are, and you run a damn state and you can't stop this. So if this curriculum actually comes from the state, they got a lot of questions that need to be answered, because then they're just sick puppies doing this in order to say we should stay in control because we're the ones who have the smart techniques. That seems like a Bush kind of way of doing stuff. I think that's very tacky. You don't tear down people in order to say, I know you're broken, but all these crazies over here broke you. Now we got to put you back together. Not if you were in charge and you allowed the crazies to do it, you jackass. Like, we'll figure it out and we'll find it out. And both sides are purely disgusting right now. And I'm fed up. I'm fed up with, well, I'm going to allow this insanity to happen to wake people up. We all know it's insane. All you're doing is allowing my children's minds to be corrupted. That's it. That's it. There is no more. And then you're demanding more tax dollars for it. Screw you.
Well, one of the things I think we can remember is why we are ospreys, and the ospreys are, fishing, taking food to their babies, and the eagles come and grab it out of their talons. So they fight back, and there is this wisdom that comes from nature, that comes from, here we are, here's the the osprey who caught a hammerhead shark to feed to her babies. And then
I love that.
Yeah.
She didn't just tell the shark to go away. She took him and carved him up.
Right. Right. But the eagles grab it from her. And that's what we're doing here. We're not letting that happen because, we don't, maybe we don't have master's degrees, but maybe we have, if you added up all our mom and grandma years, it's and go way back to where we learned that, all the way back, it adds up to way more than anything you learn in school or college.
Exactly. And you know what?
Deep wisdom.
Carol, you just reminded me of something. You know how, like, say Apache or whatever traditions where they really honor puberty?
Mm-hmm.
Like that kind of tradition where it's like, I think maybe that's something that we need as a culture, because the scary thing is that, or the scary paradox that they put on these confused kids is like, if you don't take care of this before puberty, you're screwed. So that's that's something unto itself. Is they're
Well,
trying to.
their GMOs are making kids go through puberty way before time. Like their hormones are putting in cows and stuff. So there's not even, depending on how you feed your children and depending on their biological time clock, we can't even determine when they're going to go through puberty. And so it's so disgusting that somebody's like, I need to talk to your child about anal sex before they get old enough to think about what that means, and that is even a thing. So like I need to go ahead and talk to them about this very thing that even adults are uncomfortable talking about. And I need to go ahead and talk to your child about it. Oh, and I'm going to do that behind your back, by the way, where you're not even prepared and your kid might start acting weird and having some kind of phobia when they go to the restroom, and they might have issues and you really don't know what's going on. And then you have to go get a psychologist. And then finally the psychologist figures out what's going on. And then they point the finger at the family and they wonder what's going on. And then you just find out, no, it was overreach in the school that scared the crap out of my child. Like, here's something, like, listen to what it does to children. So in kindergarten at a particular school, I'm not going to name it, they decided to talk to the children about gay marriage and that it's okay to marry someone of the same sex. They're in kindergarten. They don't even, that's the last thing on their mind. In fact, they're learning ABCs, colors, like literally nothing with sex, nothing with who you want to sleep with, nothing with who you want to spend the rest of your life with. Sometimes boys think girls are gross. Girls think boys are playing with trucks and cars. Girls are playing dress up. Sometimes they switch because they, irregardless, they teach those children this. They go out on the playground. There's a little boy that's in the corner of the playground bawling his eyes out. One of the teachers come through, and I was volunteering over there. And so I'm like, I had to go get the teacher and say, he's crying. I don't know what's going on. So of course, big ears like me, I'm standing off to the side and I listen. And she said, what's wrong? And he said, but I don't want to marry a boy. Do I have to? And she said, no. And he said, but all my friends are boys. And the girls, they like to play with this other stuff that I don't play with. Does that mean I have to be gay? And the teacher said, well, no. And I walked up to the teacher and I said, you do understand that this is way too young to introduce this stuff to children. And he could not even stop crying. He couldn't breathe. And he was panicked and they had to call the parents. Now imagine being a parent at work and you get a phone call because your kindergartner is crying at the edge of the playground because he's ashamed of playing with boys, but he sees mommy and daddy at home. But he thinks that this means he's going to have to marry a boy, but he likes some of the girls. He just doesn't want to play Barbie and dress up with them. And he's devastated and he can't breathe and they have to come get him. And it's only a school that's only half day. So what in the absolute crazy crap is that? I've seen it with my own eyes. This is what they're doing to twist the minds of children when they're not even mature enough to understand. And what he grasped from it was, I'm going to have to marry some of these boys that I'm on the playground with. Like, he had no concept and it scared him. And then some goober's going to go, well, all you got to do is talk to him and get his fears away. Why do you have to expand and go deeper about sexuality to a child because some idiot introduced it and brought it in somewhere unnecessary? You just said, well, just we open the door a bit. Now we have to open it a lot. Now we got to get to anal sex. Like, no, you sick people. You
Really?
twisted pedophiles.
The mission is so sick, and I just get reminded of this story that I saw the other day that was devastating. And Carol, it reminded me of kind of your situation. So this woman and her husband adopted a baby who had been as a baby but had bounced around a few foster homes or before she landed there, and she had some troubles, but doing pretty well. And the school, I forget what state it was, the school ended up, the mom found like a hall pass that had like Draco, even though like, and then the daughter was like, yeah, I'm a boy at school. I'm identifying as Draco, blah, blah, blah. And the mom's like, she said up until high school, it was very supportive. And at that point, it was like she was all of a sudden cut out of the whole thing. And they really manipulated this poor child into whatever, thinking that her parents were against her or something. She ends up running away. The parents are on it right away, but she ended up meeting up with somebody like online or something, and then getting like pimped out and like basically like gang raped. No. The first thing that happened was in the school. She got like a bunch of boys like bullied her in the boys' bathroom because that's what they said. Oh no, she has to use the boys' bathroom, blah, blah, blah. So she gets bullied in the bathroom, pinned against the wall. Then that other thing happens. And so then you think that it's just going to be like, okay, they found her. So the mom and the dad drive, because the girl was getting like pimped out of Washington, Virginia. They drive to down there to meet with her because they had marshals. They had marshals looking for her. So the marshals found her. They brought like all her stuffed animals, everything. They had the like backseat all ready to be like cuddly supportive, the whole thing. They get there, she freaking shows up on a video screen. And the judge blocks access to the parents for 5 months while they hold this girl.
In
Like,
jail?
yeah.
How did they hold her?
They
Oh.
a judge just wouldn't allow them to see her or go through. I don't understand how they did it. It's just one of these scumbag arenas. But I meant it's horrifying. Like and the dad burst out crying in the courtroom, so he got removed from the court.
That should have been national news.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane.
But see, that's what's gross about those that are tasked to protect us. They not only they don't highlight this stuff, they hide it from people. It's obscured. They toss in a whole bunch of other nincompoop crap, and then they say people need to stand up and fight back about what's going on. If they could find it, if the algorithm allows them to see it. Like, that's the crazy crap. It's like you're being taunted. You're being told things aren't going to change. They're just going to get worse. You stand up and do something. Oh, and by the way, if you stand up, we're going to knock you down. Oh, and there's that. Like that, like, excuse me. What kind of like crazy torture is that? And we need to call it that instead of going, oh, we're standing up. We're speaking out. Oh, so a channel could get hit again so that we can be shut up again, so that we can be chastised and no, you're not allowed to, and then be told, well, people aren't being loud enough, they're not fighting back enough. Well, okay, but you're not allowing it. So what kind of fresh torture is that? Like, I'm seeing through it now. It's quite obvious. These are Machiavellian, demented psychopaths trying to tell us to stand up for our rights if we want them back, and then at the same time pushing us down and not allowing us to stand up. That's disgusting. These people are disgusting, all of them.
Well, there's other messages too, that the civil society is what matters the most. I mean, that keeps coming through, and that you just subsume yourself and your ideas to this idea of oneness. And it's really sad because there is a oneness that we all feel, but it can't be a top-down one. It has to be something that we work through it. That's the whole process, that we work through it and we have conversations and we deal with it and resolve things or not resolve things. But that messiness is really part of the process, and just mandating things is the opposite, and it's very dangerous. And that's where we are. But I think people on both sides are starting to see that. So the tricky part now is to find a language that brings us together, and call things that we can all agree on, like the virus is synthetic. That's the problem. And the countermeasure is also synthetic, and it's there's too much hurt there. That idea of this synthetic reality being imposed on us is a bigger reality too.
John, I just sent you that video Tara was talking about.
Okay.
So I just sent it to you. It's the one with the lady. She comes up to speak and she talks about it. It's heartbreaking. And I had it to add, and I totally forgot about it, and I added the other one. So thank goodness you reminded me, Tara. That's probably the one you were trying to link, isn't it? No?
I think
Okay.
it was the one you
Maybe
already
I didn't
played.
pull it up.
No, this is a different one. The one she was just mentioning about the woman who adopted children. That's the link I just posted. It was on Twitter.
So yeah, I don't know what kind of problem I'm having. So John, you didn't see what I put in the chat? I meant not the chat, the text. So I'll tell you a little bit
Is
about
this
them,
it?
just because it might be something different. We'll see.
You have to scroll down
Is
so we
that
can
it?
see the video. Yeah, you have to scroll down so we can
Okay.
see the video.
Okay. This one wasn't one of the ones I sent, but thanks for finding it.
And John, you need a Twitter account.
Is that what it is?
She's been through
That's the one. The one Tara was talking about.
COVID hit, and she was treated with anxiety, at times very severe. Her teachers shared any concerns with me, so her treatment could be
John, it's kicking in and out.
Yeah.
Wait, are we getting like dirt box or something? What's going on here?
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, we're dealing with people with low moral character. So
The
when you have low
transparency-
moral character, that's what they do.
and she wanted to wear boys because I saw it was just a phase. It was fine with me. But at school, she told them something different. She was now a boy named Brooke Draco with male pronouns. Sage asked the school not to tell me, and they did not tell me, even though I informed them of her mental health history and medication. If I had known, this would be a much different story. She was terribly bullied. No one told me, but boys followed her, touched her, raped. Something happened in the boys' bathroom, but for 2 days, the school told me nothing. They kept meeting with Sage alone, and she became so distraught, they called me. That evening, I found a pass labeled Draco, and Sage told me she was identifying as a boy, and that her counselor said she could use the boys' bathroom. She'd been jacked up against the wall by a group of boys. She was crying, terrified. I said, stay home, we'll figure it out. That was my last conversation with Sage for 5 months. She thought to a young friend she'd met online, a note saying she was scared of what would happen if she stayed. The sheriff, FBI, search dogs were, and I drove her. 9 days later, the FBI found her in Baltimore. My baby had been lured online, sex trafficked by DC, then Maryland. She was locked in a room, drugged, gang raped, and brutalized by countless men. It was night. The FBI told us to pick her up in Maryland the next morning. We packed our cars with blankets and stuffed animals and arrived by 8 a.m. But we were told we couldn't see her and were summoned before Judge Robert Kershaw late that afternoon. They didn't even tell Sage that we came for her. We finally entered the courtroom, and Sage appears on a huge Zoom screen from a prison cell. She looks tiny and broken, and I cry out, I love you, Sage. Sage responds, I love you too, Niana. But attorney Anissa Khan rebukes us. She is a he, and his name is Draco, not Sage. We were floored. What? Khan accuses us of emotional and physical abuse, that we are misgendering her. Even though we just learned she claims to be trans and we're willing to use any name and pronouns to bring her home. My husband was so tearful, he kept forgetting the new pronouns, so the judge had the bailiff remove him from the courtroom. I was pleading for my child to be returned and treated for her unspeakable trauma. Judge Kershaw told me if I used the word trauma again, he would throw me out too. For over 2 months, he withheld custody. He housed Sage in a male quarters of a children's home. Sage told me she was the only girl and repeatedly assaulted. She was given street drugs by the other kids, and Khan told her she didn't care. She just wanted to win the case and all the way to Supreme Court if necessary. Khan tried to prove abuse, but we were eventually cleared by both states of all charges. Sage later told me Khan had told her to lie, that we hit her. Khan even had Sage's school counselors testify against us, though they barely knew Sage, and they didn't know us at all. Khan told my precious child I didn't want her anymore. I found out Sage never received any of the letters I sent her. Sage ran from the children's home and disappeared for months. They told me she might already be gone forever, but I couldn't give up, and I finally found a tip on her social media that led the marshals to her in Texas. She had been drugged, raped, beaten, and exploited. This time I was able to be with her for the traumatic rape exam and to bring her home. Back in Virginia, she entered the mental health facility that Judge Kershaw had ordered, as it would affirm her as a male. The therapist began pressuring her to have her healthy breasts removed. Sage was too scared to protest, but she asked me to secretly buy her girls' clothes because she wanted to be a girl, but keep them in the car. It took a kind lawyer, Josh Hetzler, to secure her discharge. After almost a year, Sage was finally home, safe, alive. Sage is receiving professional trauma care. The first trafficker has already been convicted. Sage has nightmares, panic attacks, rape-related medical issues, but there's hope. I told her she's not broken, she's just scarred. And part of that hope is that in courageously sharing her story, others will be saved. Sage said she doesn't know who she was back then. She wasn't a boy. She just wanted to have friends. But her school, the judge, the attorney, and the doctor were all blinded by their ideology. The consequences for Sage were unspeakable. Please don't let ideology harm another child. Let parents do our jobs. We know our children best, and we love them a million times more. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
That is heartbreaking.
That is seriously. And it's
Right.
like, what? Can you even believe that chain of events was caused?
I can.
by-
No, I can. Like the psychos that we're dealing with, I totally can. And there are people that would tune into this and be offended that there was a mom trying to save her child as her child is being gang raped. Like all that person can see is, but what if she did want to be a boy? And what if the parents confused her? You know what? There was a whole year of manipulating people, taking her away from her family, hiding stuff from her family, accusing her family of being abusive. And in their hands, the saviors, she got sex trafficked, she got drugged, she got ignored, she got put in jail, she got sex trafficked again, she got told the lie. And those were the people who cared about her more than her parents. Give me a break. Give me a break, you sick, twisted, traumatized individuals who are playing out your sycophant behaviors on the regular public. I'm sick of it. It's disgusting. And anybody who gets offended by that lady's story, you need to go get psychologically evaluated. You have issues, and you probably don't have children. So that's probably why it triggered you.
The way it overlaps with my story is all of it except for the sex change part. It's still, I think it's been going on for a long time. And the trafficking was sex trafficking involved, but also drugs. They were using her because she was underage as a drug runner, selling drugs on, the public transportation and going all over the city. So it was a similar story, but and just as horrific and traumatizing and in many ways. And she was about to get in a car and go off to the Midwest to do it somewhere else where it would be really hard to find her. So it was awful. But I think this abuse and stealing of children is a real thing.
Yeah, it is. But
It's
you
not
know what?
new. It's got a different twist now.
To change it from being dark and then to show like what it shows when parents have an open relationship with their child, and then you hear child logic and how beautiful it is in that same email. John, I sent you one because that's pretty dark, and I don't want us to leave and be on this weekend journey like feeling heavy. And so there's a couple of things that, like, you know, hey, this is so great. This is what we should be seeing from our children. So it says smart cities, and it's a 12-year-old who talks about it. And this 12-year-old is beautifully amazing and quite logical. And I think the critical thinking she's got going on is what our children have been missing because our educational system isn't teaching it.
It's teaching confusion, sadly.
But this little girl's adorable.
Yeah,
and
instead of learning
wonderful.
about
And her
this is
her
good.
confidence is beautiful. You're gonna have to scroll it down because we can't see the video, John.
To become facial recognition and
Are you frozen?
around the ring road will take 30 minutes, causing much more pollution.
John, it's coming in and out.
Would that be safe?
Hey, John, just push mute and I'll play it. Just push mute so you can see the girl, and I'll play it so people can hear it. Because it is all choppy. John. Okay, just push mute. You can show the picture of her. Because I'll play it on my microphone because it's coming out so choppy you can't hear a word that's being said. So I'll play it. And you can just put her picture up there and push mute on your end, and then I'll play it.
Good idea.
Being said. So I'll play it. Okay.
If, for example, I went to my friend's house in Zone 3, I could stand here and say more or less what other people are going to say about the effect of these 15-minute neighborhoods, soon to become digital ID facial recognition zones. Let's say my friend lives in Zone 3 and I'm in Zone 1. If, for example, I went to my friend's house in Zone 3, my parents normally come and pick me up in their car. It only takes 10 minutes. So does that mean that they would have to go round the ring road and back into town again? If my mum or dad had to drive round the ring road, it would take 30 minutes, causing much more pollution and leaving a much bigger carbon footprint. They will say, you can walk home. Would that be safe for me to walk home? Me as a 12-year-old walking home in the dark alone. Is that really going to be safe? Then they will say, oh, don't worry about that. We've already thought of that. You'll be safe. We will have 1,000 cameras on the streets following you and tracking you all the way home. Oh, and just remember, it's for your safety. What? Are you serious? Do you really think I want to be watched every second of the day? Are you serious? Thousands of cameras tracking my every move until I get home. At this point, I have to ask, is my safety that important to me that I want to be followed by cameras all the way home? Or do I prefer to have freedom than privacy? For your information, I still wouldn't feel safe. No amount of cameras is going to stop someone who wants to attack me. I want to be safe, but not to the extent that I am prepared to give up my freedom and my privacy to have it. As a 12-year-old, I am really concerned about my future. And to Klaus Schwab, I say this. How dare you! How dare you steal my children and my future? And the future of all children by enslaving us in your crazy digital surveillance prison. We all know where this is leading. These are the first steps of a dystopian reality called 15-minute neighborhoods. From a small seed, a huge tree can grow. Climate change is being used to control us. to nudge us in the direction the greedy people want us to go. The truth is that the greedy people want total control over everything we do, everything we think, and everything we say. Our government has been hijacked by greedy and selfish imposters posing as politicians. They believe they are better than us and masters over us. And until this problem is effectively dealt with, the tyranny will continue. Thank you.
And there you go.
Yay!
And
Go
she is
freedom.
so
Go
precious.
freedom.
Yeah, she's so precious.
Outspoken. She's
Mhm.
well. I hope she's not the new Greta and to
Right.
divide us. I mean,
How
it's so
dare you?
terrible to have to think about stuff like that. That people are put up as actors, and they call them that. But she feels like a real person she's pointing the right finger, I think, at those who would look at us with a million cameras.
I like how, like she said, and this is the Klaus Schwab. How dare you? And her face on it is very cute when she does it, and then she giggles. She does like a little child giggle. I love it.
Well, she was adorable. And yeah, we don't want those 15-minute cities and total surveillance, because the surveillance is not only just the cameras looking at us, it's all the stuff from inside our bodies too. This wearable technology means wearable in your bloodstream. It's
there's a ton of videos of smart cities in Europe where the ambulance can't get to the person and they have to go all the way around like 3 or 4 blocks, and then they have to go back. Like, so something that should have taken 5 minutes, when they're like right there, like here's the building and then here's all the barriers, right? Where they'd normally be able to do this, but because they're doing 15-minute cities, the ambulance can't get through. So it has to back up, go all the way around, go into the other district where it would come out on the other side, and the ambulances still don't know the directions, navigate these 15-minute cities. So people who are in an emergency have to deal with ambulances trying to figure out how to get to them. And people are standing there moving the barriers because they're like, no, this is insane.
Well, clearly this isn't designed for either people or cities to be healthy. That word is just not, that thought isn't there at all. It's complete insanity. Well, I had some advice. I had a link.
Listen to this real quick. Oh, she stopped. Never mind.
Oh, was she clucking?
What was she doing?
So she was talking to us.
Aw. Oh.
There she goes.
She has a lot to say, Tara.
She does. Yeah, we're the chickens too.
She's saying, could you please give me some food? Come on, bring it.
So
go ahead, Tara.
I'm just going to turn my camera off while you're talking for a minute because I just want to see if I arrange this in the chat because it's working for me now.
Okay. Well, I've got something you could put up that link to Dr. Circus, because since we got our banning from doing medical misinformation, we'll have to give the little the anti-plug saying we are not doctors and we are not do your own research, blah, blah, blah. But this guy is a doctor, and he has some really good advice that is real basic, simple stuff that people in Ohio and in the big 200-mile radius that want to detox, that the value of simple things like sodium bicarbonate. Can you put the website up, John? You're on mute. But anyway, I'll just kind of do a little synopsis, because this little box of stuff that's been around for hundreds of years is real. I had no idea what a potent detox it is. So it alkalizes the body, absorbs heavy metals, absorbs radiation, purifies the air, extinguishes fires, deodorizes, soothes itchiness of bug bites. But it's added to contaminated soils, sediments, or sludge containing hazardous chlorinated organics, including PCBs, to mitigate that. It also binds with uranium, separating it from dirt. And a guy that was working with the uranium spill was able to remove as much as 92% of the uranium contamination from soil. It safely removes paint, grease, oil, smoke residue, decreasing workers' exposures to chemicals, eliminating the hazardous waste associated with cleaners. And it's used by oncology centers to control chemo agent spills. So it's really potent in terms of detoxing. I had no idea. It's effective in treating poisonings, overdoses, and it negates some of the pharmaceutical drugs' toxic effects by negating the cardiotoxic and neurotoxic side effects. So it's pretty
Carol,
amazing.
sorry if I interrupt you, but is this the Dr. Circus article?
Yeah, it's the Dr. Circus. You could just put his picture up, and I'm just kind of going through it a little bit. But if you are deficient in bicarbonate, it spells big trouble. The vascular system begins to deteriorate. There's less oxygen. So it really helps your body absorb oxygen too. And that occurs to anybody that's not exercising enough. So anyway, it turns to carbon dioxide in the stomach, and that's where we need carbon dioxide. We breathe in oxygen, we let go of carbon dioxide, but we need it for certain processes in our body. And we need it for our blood too. So anyway, I just wanted to bring up another, this is not medical advice. It comes from grandmas, but I used to use it when my daughter would call me every single month from school saying she felt terrible and wanted to come home. I would go to school, and I'd learned this from a different doctor, and bring her some water that had like a quarter teaspoon of soda, bicarbonate, baking soda, not baking powder, mixed into it, and give her a drink of that. And she would say, "Oh, I feel fine now." So I think a lot of our emotions are regulated by acidosis, and just simple things can be a simple little regulation of that. It's a really good thing to keep in the back of your mind, that this little box of miracles is just cheap, available, probably sitting in the back of your refrigerator, absorbing all the stinky odors out of the refrigerator or on the shelf.
Wait, so now when you gave it to her, what did you mix it with?
Just water. I put a quarter teaspoon in a little bottle of water and took it to school, and she would drink it, and then she would, what I realized after that was that this was when she was in elementary school, but this was happening on a monthly cycle. And so her monthly cycle, even though she didn't have her periods then, and it didn't happen for years and years, she was still being affected psychologically by those shifts in hormones, and that this helped regulate it. And that was a bunch of years ago. So this is potent, amazing stuff. You don't want to drink a whole bunch of it, but it is, people eat probably too much in Tums and things like that. It is something people use regularly and may not even notice it. You don't want to get too much. Always be careful. But it's something that people in Ohio realize. It detoxes serious things, PCBs, uranium, so.
That's incredible. Incredible. I think my last video kind of lines up perfectly with, I don't know if you can see that, but hopefully I got the minutes right. But just the story behind another simple thing that we know about and care about. Can you see that?
Is it the Hobbs
Is it this one?
story?
Well, hopefully I got them all right, but it's the last one that I put.
All right. Do you want to play this real fast first?
Wait, what?
You want to play this one really fast?
I was just trying to line it up to the conversation. I'm hoping that I didn't note them all the right way, so I'm a little confused. was what.
All right.
I'll just say,
Yeah,
okay.
this one. We fight for our children. Sorry.
You can play any of them, and we can reference what we were talking about. Different stuff.
Oh, I want to.
Let this soft mineral melt in your mouth to rebuild your gums and teeth, and never need a dentist again.
Pretty good commercial.
That people that I have been aligned with.
Oh, this is different, but this is part of our common ground. This is a good one for our spirit.
Once the U.S. military response to the 9/11 attacks, I thought people like her, like the squad, they would be the ones. The Progressive Caucus, which has 100 members of Congress. But when they came out with their letter with 30 people signing it and then withdrew it within 24 hours, it's been really hard to get any of them to speak out. We had 2 war parties.
So that was
We're
sort
talking
of the end.
planes. Should we be doing?
Well, we're going to end up in World War.
Okay, so that
War
was
III.
the segment. But that was kind of like the end of it. So basically, this was at the thing that John went to, John O'Laughlin, for the anti-war thing, and this is like the Code Pink correspondent or president or person or whatever, and the other woman asks her, are you surprised at who is actually at this rally? And it's just a great conversation, and just recognizing these people that don't have a derangement syndrome, but just have been kind of like we talk about, shielded from what's going on, and they thought a different story. And so it's like their moment of kind of like realization on a very sturdy platform that they're standing on, which is awesome. And I think what our goal is,
Mm-hmm. And it's happening too. It's so wonderful to see that happening.
I agree.
Exactly. And so the other one that I was talking about was about it was just a brief background of ivermectin, which we schmectin, however you want to call it. But again, just talking about just these Japanese scientists and how they discovered it just in some of this very potent, probably maybe volcanic, they have island dirt, so probably volcanic this and that, but what it really is compared to the smear is just reminds me of what Carol was saying about the baking soda. Am I saying that right? Baking soda or baking powder?
Soda. Yeah, Arm and Hammer.
Arm and Hammer. So it's like these simple things, hydrogen peroxide, whatever, that really put a dagger in the false body of pharmacological fuddy-duddy.
Well, I think it also shows that there's lots of things you can do before you go to the doctor. And now that all the doctors so many have quit because they are, heartbroken over what they were requested to do and what they're seeing in their patients, not being able to really treat them without being part of the insurance rules, the rules-based order. Well, let's see this. We got something here. Are you going to play that?
Sorry. Yeah.
So I'll just tell you a couple of these things are, so I don't know if you guys have seen And We Know, but I grabbed these off of his Rumble channel.
Let this soft mineral melt in your mouth to rebuild your gums and teeth, and never need a dentist again.
That sounds good, to never need a dentist again.
Trump on that. Is that the ultimate goal here? And must that be the ultimate goal?
I fully agree with President Trump.
Wait,
He's the only president that we've ever had.
Sorry, but you have to, I don't know if I'm getting the minutes wrong, but I tried to be very detailed on the minutes. I don't know if it's different.
Is it the one that's 23 minutes and 45 seconds?
I think that's the end of it. So I think you're starting where I'm
11:50. Okay, 11:50. I got it.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. We're all learning here together.
This is a war on objective scientific truth, and it's a fight over basic biology. Today, far too many people are fearful of the online woke mob, which demands complete and total acquiescence on this issue. It attempts to tell parents that they're not allowed to show or the origins of these feelings. Yet, the loud, emerging voice of the many kids who are and have detransitioned are clear. They needed somebody to listen to them. Their beliefs. At the end of the day, here, one tells children that they're beautiful just the way that they are, that they can find happiness in their own bodies. The other tells them that they should take drugs and cut themselves up with expensive and experimental procedures in order to find freedom from depression. I know which side I'm on. No child in Mississippi will have these drugs or surgeries pushed upon them. This stops today. We are taking a stand for all of our children.
That's what we're talking about. Talking about real leaders.
Yep. So that was it. I'm not sure his name, but this is what we need. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
So this is what we need, some common sense. And it kind of like the part that we couldn't hear as much was he was saying these kids just needed someone to, listen to them, understand them, help guide them, not like throw them to the sharks.
Or do something really simple. I mean, I think when my daughter was feeling that anxiety, it was, I learned that some people, depression, the symptom of depression for them is anxiety. And I think that was the case for her. And just a little boost of changing her, internal pH made a huge difference regularly. And something that's that simple instead of, what these poor kids are having to go through, all the hormone treatments, many years of surgery. It's just an awful thing that little kids should not have to be faced with. There are people that have gone through that and they're happy they're gone through that. But most people that I am aware of, that I've known over periods of time, have big questions about it. Even though they want it, they think they want it, then they have regrets. So it's a horrible, sad. It's not something to do lightly. You really need to have maybe never. I mean, maybe you just are who you are, and your sexuality is what it is, and you can have feelings and deal with those. And I don't know.
But many kids that go through the procedure do so not knowing, never hearing the statistic that 60% of those who have a sex change commit suicide, or wind up in an insane asylum, and
have it reversed.
Right.
But they tell these parents that the opposite will happen. They say that if you don't, what's the word they do? If you don't validate them, some word for who they are, then you are driving them towards suicide. So they basically, it's when they removed the children from the Native people, it's like convince them that they need this other thing that's foreign to the parents, and the parents just want to do the best for the kid most of the time, and it's a predicament that they don't understand, because people don't generally understand psychology, and they don't understand what is happening here. Okay, because if we were going to put this, and like Carol, like you're saying, of people we know, because we're old enough to have like experienced before this was like such this common thing that they're doing to people. And it's like plenty of people make decisions as adults that they either regret or not, but that was their right to make, and that's a big, huge difference then, I'm sure we all did plenty of stuff that we're like not gonna be like, oh, this is, tell kids that this is what you should do. We learned from it, whatnot, and if we were looking at this from a logical standpoint, then it can be broken down to pronouns. Instead of being this cult, okay, it's very contentious. It's a social tool. Okay, it's a social tool. Some languages, like Japanese, they don't even have he or she. You say the name or this person. So it's a social tool, but biology is a social driver. So that's what we are riding on, the real road.
Well, I think depression and suicide of teens is a huge issue, and there's no denying that. And I think that's also being used not only to drive this agenda, but also, the one that Peter Bregan has been fighting for many, many years against the drugging of our kids with, downers and uppers. And I remember my daughter going to high school, and she wasn't even there very long. She dropped out, but she was she said that where they would eat lunch at the tables, they would self-organize into what drugs they were on. The Ritalin guys are over here, and the antidepressant SSRIs are over here. And
that's insane.
It's insane. And this was the kids doing it, not people putting a sign on
right. But I mean, that's how their
mindset
mindset is, because that's what's pushed on them. But then, like, because it's been so dark and heavy with what we're facing, I have 2 short clips that are very funny.
Yay.
To end with. So our weekend is full of laughter and cheer, and then we're re-energized to actually keep pushing back. The first one is, it says, "Stop telling me gender isn't real." And it's very funny because this lady's a comedian, and she brings up like things that you can't deny with genders, especially little boys and campfires. So it's just very funny. I actually understand exactly what she's saying when she says this.
I know. We do need to laugh through this. Seriously. It's the only way.
It is the only way.
And sing and pray.
Yes. Do you see it, John?
And dance.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the second one. So the next one is a very funny dance. It's hysterical, actually. But this first one is like, yeah, these people are crazy pushing this ideology on us. But when you look at it from the perspective of where this lady is talking about, I've experienced exactly what she's talking about. And it is hysterical. As a mom watching little boys, it's hysterical.
Gender is a social construct. People that have not raised boys. Oh, girls and boys are the same. Oh, really? Really? You've seen a 6-year-old girl piss. And then be super pumped about it, like, oh my God, do you smell that? Can you smell that? It smells bad. Good to see that disgusting is genetic. Stop telling me that gender is stop.
Okay, John, go ahead and because it's so it's so like choppy that it's hard
They're
to get
messing with us.
how funny it is. So I'm gonna let you hear it because it's this woman's hysterical. Hang on.
Oh, girls and
Okay.
boys are the same. Oh, really? Really? Stop telling me that gender isn't real. Stop it. Stop it. Stop telling me that gender is a social construct. People who say that have not raised boys. Oh, girls and boys are the same. Oh, really? Really? You've seen a 6-year-old girl piss out a campfire? And then be super pumped about it, like, oh my God, do you smell that? Can you smell that? It smells bad. to see that disgusting is genetic. Stop telling me that gender.
Okay. So, I mean, yeah, when I have my niece over and I'm spending time with her, totally different than when I'm with my boys. And so when people are saying it's a social construct, well, they don't really have kids yet. And they don't have children. And they don't have an understanding of like raising a child and watching that there are just particular things that happen for boys and that happen for girls. Things they say, how they behave. Now, there feminine like behavior aspects that some boys might have. Yeah, they might associate with their mom or be close to their mom and mimic that behavior. Same with girls. They might associate with their dad and mimic that behavior, but they tend to have the same reactions when it comes to physical play, mental acuity. Like these are things that, as a parent you see, and it's stark in difference. Like most parents, when you're pregnant and you find out, oh, I'm having a boy, they're like, oh, boys are so hard when they're little, and when they get old in their teenage years, they're easier. And if you have a girl, they're like, oh, well, the girl is so easy when she's younger and it gets more difficult in her teenage years. Like this is something I heard from hundreds and hundreds of people when I was pregnant, right after I had my kid. And then when I went on play dates with hundreds and hundreds of kids, we saw it. We saw the boys were out of control, running up slides, pushing, like being crazy, and girls were just quietly playing and twisting each other's hair. And it was obvious, like boys are very physical. They're all over the place. They could get hurt on the playground. They could hurt somebody else. Where girls are like, ew, what's on this swing? Get it off. And they didn't want to sit on a dirty swing. And, and there were tomboys and same vice versa. But like, it's not a social construct. It is a thing. It became what it is because it is what it is. Like you can't say, oh, that was manufactured. No, it's actually what it is. You can't manufacture something that is. Like what they're doing is manufacturing a social construct. They are trying to rearrange and say, no, this is organic and natural. No, it's not. That's why you have to force it. Like you don't have to force something that is. They're taking something that is, calling it a social construct as they actually make a construct themselves. And that's the insane thing. And hopefully this last video of a dance, and it's about a guy who's trying to dance the exact way the lyrics tell him to. It's hysterical. It's the Humpty dance. It's the Humpty dance, but the way he dances is exactly how it explains it. And it's hysterical because you can't dance that dance without looking hysterical. So I think that's the one I put that what the humor dance would actually look like if you followed the instructions. It's just a good one to end on.
Okay, we'll dance out the Humpty dance.
It's so funny. Oh gosh.
All right.
A little bit about myself. Let me tell you a little bit about dance. It's real easy to check it out. First I limped to the side like my leg was broken, shaking and twitching, kinda like I was smoking. Crazy, whack, funky. People say you look like you have me. That's a it's supposed to look like a fit or a convulsion. Anyone can play this game. This is my dance, y'all. Humpty Hump's my name. No two people will do it the same. You got it down when you appear to be in pain. Humping, funkin', jumping, gig around, shaking your rump. And when the doodle jump punk points a finger like a stunt, tell him step off. I'm doing the hump. The Humpty dance. Now I told y'all a little bit about myself.
That's
The Humpty dance. All right, you guys ready to get out and do that Humpty?
Yeah.
Yeah. And John, you're going to have to re-watch this video to see how choppy it is when you're playing stuff.
Okay.
See it on your end. But it like literally will chop it where you can't see or really grasp
All
what's
right.
going on. So
Yeah,
I don't know if it's
I
your
wonder
connection.
why.
Huh?
I wonder why.
I don't know.
I should have restarted my PC before we went on the air.
Okay. But like it's really
Right, so-
yeah. If you watch
That's why us on sometimes it's so simple, and the non-technology people, we have no idea.
Well, that's why you just do the reboot. If that solves everything. There was a really funny British TV show about that called the IT Crowd, and that was their solution for everything. Turn it off and turn it on.
Oh, you sent me
Just
that
like
link.
baking soda. It's so
Carol,
simple.
You have to send me that link. And what's really funny is at the beginning of that song, because it talks about drag your leg, like like your leg is hurt,
Like
and
it
then
is.
act like you're on drugs and like you've got the shakes, and so he's doing it and he's like, how is this even a dance? And so it's really funny. So that's going to be our challenge this weekend. Is the kids have to do the Humpty dance and show me what it looks like, because we're going to have dance party. So when we have dance party, that's going to be our dance party challenge.
Right, because you
Well,
know
that's
what? It
great.
is March now, so people, we got to get marching.
Yep.
March 4th. Yeah, we have to all March
Yeah.
4th.
Oh, March 4th. What a good getting over the. I meant, we're gonna be dancing.
Yeah.
But anyways,
Yes.
thank you guys so much for an awesome show. I'm glad I made it, and
We are too.
have an awesome weekend.
Okay. Take care, everybody.
Eek, eek, eek.